from LA to Piscataway. All Big Ten all year long. This is Big Ten 10. When we do these spring game previews, a lot of times we're looking for those position battles. Maybe some question marks, some younger players to really step up. And what are going to be some of those positions? Who are going to be some of those players that step up? That was kind of hard to find for Oregon because, to put it bluntly, they're loaded pretty much all over the place. Let's bring in Doug Scott to talk all things Oregon spring game this Saturday. Doug, this is a loaded football team. Holy smokes, are they good on all fronts? Offense, defense, special teams as well. That is why they are a national championship contender. And another reason why they're a national championship contender, this offense specifically at quarterback. You've got Dillon Gabriel. You've got Dante Moore. 2 transfers coming over, and I think fans have 2 different sets of expectations of what they want to see from each guy in the spring game. What are you specifically looking for from each guy? Because Dillon Gabriel, of course, is going to be expected to get in there, start, be a Heisman Trophy candidate type of guy like Bo Nix. And then you've got Dante Moore over here. They're looking to develop him and maybe de-UCLA him a little bit. So what are you looking forward to for both these guys in the spring game?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I assume the last couple of years, Dan Lanning definitely runs like a normal spring game, like an actual game, right? So he's one, you see a lot of coaches now, a lot of programs. And even when Mario was here, we never had an actual spring game. It was always some offenses versus defense thing. But Dan runs a true spring game, divides it, splits the squad. So I assume those two will be on opposite teams to give them both a lot of reps. But for Dillon Gabriel, I think you're really looking for little to no drop off from what we had last year under Bo Nix to what Oregon has now under Dillon Gabriel. They're not the same type of quarterback, but there are some similarities in the way that they fit the offense that Oregon and Will Stein runs and what they can do on this team. So I think really you're looking for mastery of the offense. How well does he know the offense already, right? He came in January. He's been here 4 months. Is he up to speed on the offense? What part of it can he run effectively? Where does he, maybe still have a ways to go in mastering the offense and really commanding the huddle, right? Mm-hmm. Huddle. I'll use that euphemistically, but really owning, leading that side of the ball and really command of the offense, knowing the checks, right, to get them out of the right play into the right play. That was one of the things that I think you didn't hear a lot about Bo Nix last year. I mean, sometimes you did, but it was so critical in how much Will and Dan allowed him to check plays at the line of scrimmage and check Oregon into a better play based on what he was seeing on the field. Obviously, Dillon Gabriel, another 6-year quarterback. Bo was a 5th-year quarterback. So tons of experience. And will he have that same command of the offense and that same trust to be able to execute those kind of those calls at the line and really be confident in running the offense? I think that's what you're looking for there. Confidence and what's that drop off, if any. But I think with Dante, you're just looking for what does his confidence look like? Is he able to execute the offense to what level? And really, let's see that arm. Let's see that throw. Let's see him execute those plays in those big moments.
Let's switch from the offensive side to the defensive side. Personally, I'm curious to see how those transfers in the secondary are all going to gel together. Of course, Jabbar Muhammad coming over from Washington. Cam Alexander, highly graded, coming over from UTSA. Kobe Savage comes with Power 4 experience from Kansas State as well. What's a position group, or maybe what are some headlines that you are looking forward to in the spring game on the defensive side of the football?
Yeah, so I mean, the secondary, you brought that up. One of the challenges that Oregon has had is at the safety position, and obviously it cost them 2 games last year. Quite frankly, if you look at those 2 Washington losses, you could break it down probably to the play at the safety position was the difference in that game between a win and a loss for Oregon. And really that boils down to the fact that they had not recruited that position well at all since about 2018. The interior defensive line is probably the biggest question mark on the Oregon defense, right? They lost a lot of veterans last year. I think by most accounts, the players that are coming up that Oregon has recruited under Dan Lanning in the last 2 cycles at the defensive line position are more talented players than, and this is no disrespect to these guys, than a Brandon Doris or Taki Taimani or a Popo Amavea, who are all very good players for Oregon, all conference level players, 2 of those guys for sure. But they were guys who were 5th, 6-year players, right, and had gotten there, through hard work and developing themselves and being developed. The raw talent of these younger guys that Oregon has brought in under Lanning is higher. Now, they're younger. They don't have the experience. They haven't built themselves up there yet. you want to see how those young nose tackles who will be playing that position right now, and those will be younger guys like a Ben Roberts and Amari Washington, are probably the two guys first up at that position as well. So those are young guys who haven't played a lot of snaps. So that's a key for Oregon at that nose tackle position. And then I want to speak on the edges, getting Jordan Birch back, which was obviously one of the biggest recruiting wins that Oregon had in the offseason, getting him back for another season. He was a tremendous run stopper last year. Wasn't as good in the pass rush game. I'm not sure Oregon asked him to be, but I think that's an area they want to see more out of him this year. But as a run stopper, you saw in that Pac-12 championship game, he went out in the first series of that game, never returned, and that made a huge difference because Washington was able to run the ball very effectively, unfortunately, after that injury. So getting him back is huge. But the other edge players at Oregon, these are all true freshmen and redshirt freshmen coming up now. So, Mateo Uiagalelei obviously coming back. I think he's going to have a huge jump this year. He played effectively last year as a true freshman. I think you're going to see a breakout star this year at Mateo at the edge position for Oregon. Another guy, Tatum Tuioti, coming back. Blake Purchase coming back. All these guys were true freshmen last year. They're all ready to roll in another season. A couple other guys on that room as well that might stand up this year.
You talk about some of those players, those young players on the defensive side of the football that could really step up. Maybe if there's a few more on defense or maybe some players on the offense. We know Dan Lanning has recruited extremely well the last couple of years. Who are kind of some younger players, because that's what the spring game is all about, right? A lot of people get a lot of reps, right? Get down to the third team and fourth team and all those types of younger players. Who are some of those young, talented prospects that Dan Lanning has brought in his first couple of recruiting classes that you're looking forward to seeing, and maybe Big Ten fans should really have an eye on in the spring game that could possibly be breakout stars in their first season in the Big Ten here in 2024?
Yeah, so I'll mention Jordan James. He's maybe not. He ran for 700-something yards last year, but he was kind of the second fiddle to Bucky Irving. That guy, this is an NFL back, and he's going to be the number one guy this year. And I think it's going to be, he's going to have a breakout season for the nation to see. I think, obviously people who followed Oregon in the Pac-12 are probably familiar with him. Beyond that, I think tight end Kenyon Sadiq is the second year as a true freshman last year, played sparingly. He is behind a couple of veterans. Ferguson was an all I can't think of his name.
Terrence.
Terrence, thank you. I was going to say Trent. We have a Trent Ferguson on the team too, so it's confusing. Terrence Ferguson, who was an all-conference tight end last year, he's entering his final year. Patrick Herbert was another tight end. He's been injured off and on. He's entering his final year. Both those guys will play, but I think Kenyon Sadiq is more of a dynamic playmaking type of tight end, a receiving tight end, if you will, and he is quite an explosive player, and I think we're going to see him in a much bigger role this year. He could break out a little bit along the offensive line. Poncho, these Polynesian names get me every time. We'll just go with Poncho.
There we go.
So he started in the bowl game. He'll be taking over at center. I think he's going to be a real breakout player this year on the offensive line for Oregon as well. In fact, he played a lot last year across the guard and center positions, and I think he'll fit right in there. So beyond that, a receiver, Jurion Dickey would be another one, right? It's a deep room this year. They got Tez Johnson back, who was the all-time single-season catch leader for Oregon last year, 86 or 89 catches last year. Obviously, they brought Evan Stewart over from Texas A&M. The early returns on him are very good. But I think Dickey's going to push for time because he's really talented. He was a five-star in the 2023 class. Was injured in his high school year, rehabbed most of last season for Oregon. He was a June enrollee, so he missed spring ball his freshman year, was rehabbing an injury, really didn't get to practicing until late in the season last year, so it was a non-factor. But this guy was a five-star for a reason, and I think his talent will get him on the field this year. So that's another guy who could break out at the receiving position, which is a loaded receiving group for Oregon.
Oh, my gosh, that room. And then you mentioned Jordan James. You got Noah Whittington in that backfield as well. This is going to be an offense, a defense, an entire team that I'm looking forward to seeing not only in the spring game, but once we get to actual Big Ten Conference games in the fall as well. And just seeing the depth of talent that Dan Lanning has brought in. That's what these spring games are for. Doug, I appreciate you joining me. I'm really looking forward to seeing you here throughout the season in the Ducks' first year in the Big Ten Conference.
I can't wait. I'm so excited. Thanks, Ted, for having me on.
Thanks for watching Big Ten Ted, where it's all Big Ten all year long. Make sure to like the video to spread the word of Big Ten Ted to the masses, and subscribe to the channel for updates on Big Ten content that drops every day.